Hey everyone! Today we're going to keep reading our Finding Tinkerbell, a Nevergirl's Adventure Beyond Neverland chapter book. If you haven't checked out the first several chapters, they're already posted on my YouTube channel. I will link my chapter book playlist down below so you can check it out. But let's go ahead and get started reading. We left off on chapter 4. Tink flew back to her workshop. The rescue had gone well, but she felt gloomy. She thought how small and vulnerable fairies were. A flying fairy wouldn't make it very far on her own. Seeing the petrified fairy in the orchard had only been a reminder of that. I wish there was some other way, she thought. Tink drew up short. She hovered in the air, staring. A boat sat on a clump of flowers not 2 feet away from her workshop. It was a big, sturdy boat with a sail made of cloth. A clumsy boat, Tink thought, yet it was the perfect size for a fairy. Tink turned to see who the boat belonged to, but there wasn't a clumsy in sight. The boat looked as if it had been dropped straight out of the sky and landed there in her buttercups. Tink fluttered over to it. The moment she stepped onto the deck, she sensed the boat was special. Tink knew about making things. She could tell when something was well crafted, and she knew when something had been made with love, and this boat was both. All of a sudden, Tink understood. Her wish had been granted. She was sure that Neverland had something to do with it. The magic of Neverland can never be underestimated. Of course, when magic gives you a gift, you have to take it. Getting the boat inside the tea kettle part was the hardest part. The doorway to Tink's workshop was only 3 inches tall, and the boat was a good deal bigger. Tink managed it at last, though it took nearly a gallon of fairy dust to magically squeeze it through. Once the boat was inside, Tink got to work. She sealed all the cracks with pine tar and waterproofed them with beeswax. She patched the sail. The lines were made of plain old cotton string, and she replaced them with good fairy-made rope. She oiled the ship's wheel and checked the rudder. The cabin was musty, so she gave it a good airing and then moved her own bed in. She added a soft thistledown comforter and a pussy willow pillow so she'd be cozy during her cold night at sea. There she is in the boat. Last but not least, Tink tinkered a shiny new brass bell. She engraved the boat's name on the side, changing just 1 letter so it read, Tink's Treasure. Then, when she rang the bell, its peal was deep and satisfying. Tink worked for 3 days and nights, but at last the boat was ready. The sun was setting as she stepped back to admire it. She thought it was the finest boat she'd ever seen, even better than the grand ships anchored in Pirates Cove. She had one more thing to do. She needed a map. Of course, she had the one under her desk, but it was a library map. She couldn't just take it. Tink sat down and spread out a piece of onion skin. She would trace the map and return the original to the library. She had just started tracing the map onto the papery skin when she heard a knock at the door. Tink opened it. 4 of her friends stood in the doorstep. Iridessa, the light fairy, Fawn, the animal fairy, Rosetta, the garden fairy, and Silvermist, the water fairy. They looked at Tink gravely. All right, Tinkerbell, what's going on? Iridessa demanded. What do you mean? Tink asked. We know you've been up to something, Iridessa replied. We haven't seen you for days. You've missed every meal. There are candles burning in your workshop all night, Rosetta added. The dust keepers say you used buckets of fairy dust, Silvermist said. Yeah, Fawn agreed. Something stinks around here. There was a pause. Rosetta wrinkled her nose and whispered, Fawn, I think that might be you. Me? Fawn sniffed her shirt. Whoops, ran into a stink bug today. Boy, he was in a mood. Iridessa rolled her eyes. Tink, what we're trying to say is we think you're hiding something from us. I'm not hiding anything, Tink replied, stepping aside. Come in and see for yourselves. Her friends crowded through the doorway, then stepped and stared. There's all her friends at the door. Tink had magically stretched the inside of her workshop to make room for the boat, but it still took up most of the room. It's a boat, Silvermist observed. A big boat, Rosetta added. You're not going to turn pirate on us, are you, Tink? Fawn asked. Tink laughed. Oh, of course not. I just want to sail it. What? Where? When? Why? Her friends asked all at once. On the Never Sea, of course, Tink answered. If the weather's bright, I'll leave tomorrow. As for why? Well, simply because I can. Her friends stared at her in amazement. Rosetta placed a gentle hand on her arm. Tink, honey, are you feeling all right? I feel fine, Tink said. Why does everyone keep asking me that? It's just, why a boat? Silvermist asked. You aren't even a water fairy. So, Tink tugged on her bangs, which was what she did when she was annoyed. She hadn't expected so many questions. I know my way around a ship. I've been on plenty of pirate ships with Peter Pan. Ah, so you're going with Peter, said Iridessa. The others nodded as if they finally understood. No, said Tink, tugging harder. This has nothing to do with him. That was mostly true, but not completely. Journeys with Peter had given Tink her first real taste of adventure. And as true adventurers know, adventures are like chocolate ice cream or never-berry pie. Once you've gotten a taste, you've always craved more. But this time, Tink didn't need Peter. She could have a big adventure on her own. Haven't you ever wanted to do something really big? She asked her friends. Sure, said Iridessa. That's when I make a rainbow. Or a waterfall, said Silvermist. Or a tree grow, added Rosetta. Or a lion roar, said Fawn. You don't have to leave Neverland to do something big. Well, maybe I want to be different. Maybe I want to be the first fairy to sail across the Never Sea, Tink said. I might even discover something new. She was about to add, like Shadow Island, but then she thought better of it. Instead, she said, you're my friends. Aren't friends supposed to support one another's dreams? Her friends looked abashed. Oh, of course I support you, Tink, Silvermist said quickly. Me too. So do I. We all do, said Iridessa. The fairies wrapped their arms around Tink and pulled her into a hug. But you have to promise to come back, Rosetta added. I promise, Tink laughed. She said goodbye to her friends. After they left, she went back to tracing the map. The faint shadow lay offshore to the east of Neverland, so that was where Tink decided to start. She used a hummingbird quill dipped in blackberry ink. The coast of Neverland was easy to trace. The line showed firmly through the onion skin, but the smudge, having no clear edges, was harder. Tink turned up the lantern. Then she bent over her work. The bright light cast a shadow on the rounded wall of her tea kettle workshop. Scritch, scritch, scritch. Tink's quill scratched across the page. On the wall, her shadow's quill moved. She reached to dip the quill in the inkwell, and her shadow did the same thing. There's the map. It had been a long day. The workshop was warm and cozy. Soon Tink's eyelids grew heavy. The quill slipped from her hand. And yet, from the corner of her eye, Tink seemed to see her shadow still working. A dark island appeared on the map where there had been none before. Ah, so that's Shadow Island, Tink thought sleepily. Huh? Tink's eyes flew open. She grabbed a map and held it up to the light. But nothing was there. I'm imagining things, she said with a laugh. She set down the map, then yawned and stretched her arms. On the wall, her shadow yawned and stretched too. I'll finish in the morning, Tink said, reaching over and turning down the lantern. Then she started for the door. In the dim light, she didn't notice that her shadow remained where it was, bending over the map. Chapter 5. Gabby, Mr. Vasquez said, where is the boat? Gabby was sitting at the kitchen table in her house, drawing a picture of Neverland. She paused while coloring a mermaid's tail and looked up. What boat, Poppy? Great-grandpa's boat, the one that you found in the basement, he said. What did you do with it? Oh, that boat. Gabby set down her crowns to think. She'd taken the boat to Pixie Hollow, and then what? Gabby searched her mind, but she couldn't remember where she'd put it. I know it's somewhere. Did something happen to it? Her father asked with a frown. No! Then where is it? Said Gabby. Her father looked at her for a long moment. Then he sat down at the table. Mija, you know that boat looks like an old toy, but it's very important to me. I know, Gabby interrupted. I was very careful. It's just that Her father held up his hand. No, listen. I've told you why it's important. You see, your great-great-grandfather made it. He made it? Said Gabby. No wonder the boat seems so different from other toys. With his own hands, her father said. He was a wonderful craftsman. I loved watching him work. He made all kinds of things, wooden animals, dollhouse furniture, but the boat was always my favorite. I think he would have liked to sail a boat like that. When I was old enough, he gave it to me. It's the only thing of his that I still have, and you've been careless with it. Gabby's throat felt tight. She saw now that she had been careless. For the first time, her father had trusted her with something important, and she'd let him down. It was an awful feeling to have. I'll find it, Poppy, she choked out. I promise. I won't come back without it. Gabby ran from the kitchen up to her room. The boat was there somewhere. It had to be. She dug through her toy box and looked in her closet. She pulled everything out from under the bed. She found 3 socks, 7 barrettes, an old school art project, and 37 cents. But no boat. Gabby was digging through her dresser drawers when Mia paused in the hall. She stopped in the doorway of Gabby's room and stared. What are you doing? I can't find the boat, Gabby cried. What boat? Asked Mia. Great-grandpa's boat. From the basement, Gabby said. I think it's lost. Mia sucked in her breath. Uh-oh, is Poppy mad? No. Gabby shook her head tearfully. She almost wished her father were mad. Being disappointed in her was so much worse. I'll have to find it. We will, Mia put her arm around her sister. Let's just retrace your steps. Where's the last place you saw it? In Pixie Hollow, Gabby said. I was bringing it to show the fairies. I thought that maybe I could give them a ride. And then what happened? Asked Mia. Gabby thought hard. And then, oh, I know, I set it down when we all ran to help save that fairy from the snake. It must still be there. She started for the door. We have to go to Pixie Hollow right now. I'll get Kate and Lainey, Mia said. Heading for the phone, the four girls had a rule that they would never go to Neverland without one another. 20 minutes later, the friends had gathered by the loose fence board. I can't stay for long, Lainey said. My mom says I have to be home in half an hour to help with dinner. We'll just find the boat and come back, Mia told her. Anyway, you know time never really passes when we're all together in Neverland. You'll be home with plenty of time. Let's go rescue the boat. Kate patted Gabby's shoulder. Gabby gave her a weak smile. The achy feeling in her throat had gone away. She was glad Kate and Lainey were there. They would help her find the boat, and soon she'd be placing it back in her father's hands. I'm proud of you for taking care of it, she imagined him saying. Come on, Gabby said. She pushed through the fence board aside and crawled in. The first moments of stepping into Pixie Hollow were always the most magical. The ground changed from stubbly grass to soft, springy moss. The sounds of cars and lawnmowers were replaced by the jingle of fairy laughter. Even the air felt enchanted. It smelled like orange blossoms and sparkled with dust from the wings of passing fairies. By this time, Gabby hardly noticed any of it. She crossed over to Havendish Streams in 2 bounds and raced up the hill to the home tree. Mia, Lainey, and Kate were right behind her. Together, the girls searched by the tree, but the boat was nowhere around. Are you sure this is where you left it? Lainey asked. Yes, Gabby said. She pointed to a patch of flowers not far from Tink's workshop. I said it right there. There they are looking for the boat. Maybe the fairies moved it, Mia said. Let's ask someone. Excuse me, she flagged out a passing fairy. The fairy paused midair. She was wearing the walnut shell cap of a fruit harvester. A pair of cherries hung over her shoulder. Yes? I'm looking for my boat. I left it here. Maybe you've seen it. It's green. It's about this big. The fairy shook her head. Haven't noticed any boats. Why not check the dock? That's where I'd look. Good idea, said Kate. The girls returned to Havendish Stream and followed it down to the bend where the ferry boats were docked. They saw tiny birch bark canoes, boats with leaf sails, and rafts made of twigs, but Mia and Gabby's great-grandfather's boat wasn't among them. What if we never find it? Gabby asked. Don't give up, Kate told her. Let's ask Tink. The boat was right outside her workshop. Maybe she'll know what happened to it. When they got to Tink's tea kettle, Gabby knelt down and gently tapped her finger on the metal door. But no one answered. She tried to look through the windows, but the curtains were drawn. Should she knock again? She knew Tink didn't like to be bothered when she was working. At the moment, Flan flew by, carrying an armload of sunflower seeds. She stopped when she saw the 4 girls crouched outside of Tink's workshop. Tink's gone, she said. What do you mean she's gone? Mia asked. She found a boat, a nice big sturdy one, Fawn explained. She went out to sea in it this morning. You just missed her. I'm so excited to see what Tink's going to do when she gets that boat in the Neversea. I hope you guys enjoyed continuing to read Beyond Neverland Finding Tinkerbell, and I will see you guys in our next read aloud. Bye, everyone.